So I have to act real professional during this, right? That's hard. Good afternoon. I want to welcome everybody to our site-based meeting. It's Monday, December 14th. We'll go ahead and begin here with the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Ms. Bushley and Sparks? Oh, that was Angela, my fault. And then at this time, I would like for you guys to go ahead and for the approval of the November minutes that were sent out this past Friday. Any questions or comment on that?
Hey, Scott, how did you send out the agenda? Because I don't have an account.
I sent them out to the members of the committee. So
I know, but
it was an email, Jen.
It's asking me to sign into a Dayton page.
Are you in the 1211 email?
It wasn't a regular attachment. It was like, I don't know if it's a OneDrive link or something like that.
Oh, so you weren't able to open it, Jen?
Yeah, I can't get into it.
I apologize.
Right.
If that ever happens, just email me. If you don't, you should always receive those on a Friday. I always like to send those so you have time to review it before the weekend. I would be glad to send that to you. Okay?
Cool, thank you.
No problem.
When everyone's finished reading, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Hey, Jen, did you not get the email at all, or it just didn't open for you?
I got the email, but I don't have access to get into it.
Yeah, I just tried to resend that to you, Jen.
Thank you.
with Mr. Wolf.
Is everybody reading something? Am I supposed to be reading something?
They're just reading the November minutes.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I made a motion to accept. We're just waiting for a second.
I can second it. Jen, have you been able to get it as a PDF file yet, or is it still an online file?
Nope, I can't sign into it. I got nothing.
Okay.
Thanks, Casey.
Casey. If you ever have an issue in the future, like I said, I would just, I always send on Friday for whatever reason, just email me, text me, call me, and I'll be glad to take care of it, okay?
Yep.
Are we ready to move on to the good news report then? Since Mrs. Bushley, Mrs. Getz have
I think so.
approved. Okay. From a good news report, we have a lot of good news to share this month. I know it's been a short month. It seems that we just met there right before Thanksgiving. Here we are, obviously with the board meeting. I'm sorry, with the holiday being next week, we moved our site-based meeting this month up and our board meeting up this month to this week. So that didn't give us a lot of time. But I wanted to share some good things. First off, it is the end of the first quarter. Or I'm sorry, end of the second quarter, end of the first semester. Midterms are taking place this week. So just the obstacles that have been overcome to get to this point so far this semester have been amazing. So that's good news. I want to share also the generosity of the community, the donations, things of that nature for our school, our students, our population here. Really been amazing to see. Thousands of dollars been raised, a tremendous amount of gifts, all to make sure that our kids have a great Christmas. So very appreciative of that, and really it's very exciting and thankful for our kids to be receiving that. Also, the Northern Kentucky Agency for Substance Abuse, there was a grant that was written by Georgia, Tracy, and Lisa. They worked collaboratively on that, and they're awarded, in a nutshell, it promotes positivity, and we were awarded that as a school, as a district, I should say, and the amount of $5,000. So I really want to thank Georgia, Tracy, and Lisa for their efforts in that. So I thought that was some great news and wanted to share. Also, good news from the standpoint of athletics are beginning today. Today is the first day of practice back for our winter sports. So our bowling team is practicing today, or the boys and girls basketball teams are practicing today, and hopeful that their seasons will begin soon, with games are scheduled to start on January 4th. So those are some exciting things that are happening. I also want to just mention, I don't know if I should say this just yet, but we're in the process of applying for a literacy grant, and Mr. Wolf and Mr. Wright and our English department have really, and I should say also when Mrs. Dragon and Mr. Snow at the elementary, it's a district-wide grant, and they've worked extremely hard on that. That's going to be submitted this week, and it's we're hopeful that we'll receive those funds, and those funds will be very welcome to our district so that we can better meet the needs of our kids and help continue to promote growth. And so that's exciting as well. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And regardless of how it turns out, I really want to thank Mr. Wolf. He's really taken on the brunt of it. He's worked tirelessly on that. So I want to thank him, and certainly Mr. Wright, Mrs. Dragon, Mr. Cheneau, as well as Mrs. Davenport and the rest of the departments who have contributed as well. And of course, Lisa Hans has been, and Nicole Ponning as well, really spent a lot of time. So it's not been it's been one of those things where in a very short amount of time, a lot of work has needed to take place. So I know Mr. Wolf will be relieved to submit that this week, and let's hope for good news here in the next couple of weeks or a few months.
Mm-hmm. Very relieved.
Anybody else have any good news to share at all at this time? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then to public comment. I'll wait for Mr. Woods to let us know if anybody is watching that has any public comment at this time. All right, thank you, Casey. All right, moving on to student achievement, assessing the data. We don't have any data to share at this time. Obviously, it's a very atypical school year, so there isn't any data that we'll be sharing for today's meeting. Next, we'll go ahead and move into the school improvement planning there. Just a monthly review. The CSIP, that is due at the end of this month. Ours has already been submitted. It's always due at the end of December for the school year. Mr. Wolf really does the bulk of that. So I want to thank him for his efforts on that. So we've already submitted ours. Ours is complete, and so that's a good thing, right, Mr. Wolf?
That is correct, but we have to approve it at this month's meeting because it has to go before the board on Wednesday. So, and I can you feel free to talk about it, or I can talk about it and briefly share. It's up to you, because the process looks different this year.
Why don't you go ahead and share them, Mr. Wolf, since you really spearhead the efforts there on the CSIP.
Okay, so as Aaron and Angie and Sarah, whoever, I think those are the only teachers right now on this call. No, normally what we do with our CSIP is we have a November professional learning day in which we review all of our data. We answer some questions. And then we come up with activities for our goals. This year, one of the options that was offered to us by KD, offered to every school, was to just keep our CSIP similar to years past, because we didn't have any new state K-Prep data. We did have local data. So one of the things that I did, and let me see if I can pull this up, because I'd like to share this with you. Case testing. Nope, this is the wrong one. All right. Let me see if I can share this with you really quick. Let me pull this up. Can you guys see the CDIP? Scott, can you see it? For some reason, you're the only one that I can see. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger. So just so you guys are aware, so the goals for a middle and a high school are proficiency, growth, gap, transition readiness, and graduation rate. And so you can see at the very top, I'll try to make this a little bit bigger.
I was just gonna say it's very narrow. It only shows the column with the date, and then it has the 50% of grant match.
Yeah, we don't have to look at the whole thing. Did you send a copy of this to them? If not, I can email.
No, I can
email it to them. So if you look at, so there's a proficiency goal. So here's what we did for this, just so you guys are aware. This is the same exact CSIP you approved last year, minus the objective over on here on the left-hand side. That data changed a little bit. The proficiency, the goal, like at the top, by the end of, we changed it to 2022 because our goal is supposed to be a 2-year goal. So the date changed, the data did not, because like that middle school proficiency indicator has not changed because we haven't taken up-to-date K-Prep scores. The one thing I did here, and I didn't do this for every for every one, because we didn't have to do it for everyone, like flashback PLC meetings. I just put, these are occurring every Wednesday as opposed to during planning periods last school year. I made a progress monitoring note about case testing. First round of case testing has occurred. First round of CERT testing has occurred. The copy that I will email to you as soon as I stop sharing will be this copy. You just need to know that the only changes are what's in this objective if we had new data. So like for separate academic indicator, we don't have new data because separate academic indicator encompasses 7th grade science, 8th grade social studies, and 8th grade on-demand writing. And then at the high school, 11th grade on-demand writing, and then 11th grade science. We don't have any new scores for that. So from this past year, so that did not change. One other goal I wanted to share with you. This is GAP. That score has not changed because no new data. And then growth. Actually, our data for growth changed. The difference between growth and the other goals, growth uses local data, whereas the rest of the goals use state-related data. So our growth goal is a 1-year goal, and that's based on case. So I looked to see what we scored on case, and then I have updated the scores there. I know when I say that, Aaron Getz and Sarah Davenport are probably like, "What? You have case scores?" Yes, I got those in the middle of last week when I was in the middle of writing this wonderful grant. We hopefully get, and I've not had a chance to send them to you. So I promise you that's on my to-do list after I submit the grant, which is hopefully tomorrow. But I will email that to you. Just know that nothing, I left all those activities just because we're in virtual learning this year. I didn't want to change all the activities to fit what we're doing now, because hopefully next August or next school year, when we go to rewrite our new CSIP for the 21-22 school year, we won't have to change everything because hopefully we'll be in full person instruction at that point in time. So, but keep in mind that is also a fluid document. So that just because that's Scott made the statement that it's submitted, that's submitted on this website that KD tells us we have to submit on, but we can change it at any point in time. So if I were to send it out and there's a typo in there, Angie Bushley's like, "What? He's got the wrong school year." Just shoot me an email. We'll change it and I'll re-upload it. It's not like it's to them. The only thing they send to us for all these wonderful diagnostics we do that take us like months is just an email that Scott gets that says, "Here's the status of your CSIP and diagnostics." And it lists them and says done or completed or not started. That's all we get, unless we get audited. If we get audited, well, then it's a little bit more serious, as you guys are aware of. So I know you don't have a copy of that. So let me send that to you. Probably be nice for you to read that prior to you approving anything. I'm going to try to send that to you really quick. So the site-based member, Aaron, Angie, Jen Sparks is on here. And
Brad Campbell needs it as well.
Brad Campbell, and then Angela Gonzalez, right? Jen Sparks.
A4 Smiles.
No, I have Angela Gonzalez for some reason. Jen, never mind, I got it.
She changed hers as well, so
yep. It's
not the Fifth Third anymore.
Yeah. So I'm in the midst of sending this to you, but that's a brief overview of it. You guys can look at it. Feel free to look it over. Let me know if something needs to be added, changed, deleted. We're more than welcome. We can do that at any point in time. You're not going to offend me if there's something wrong with it, because it happens sometimes. So here, let me send this to you. All right. It should be on its way. Depends on how quick the internet is. And then Sarah, I can send it to you, Sarah, so you can, I forgot to include you, but I will forward it to you as well. But that was at the recommendation of keeping your activities and goals the same. That was at the that was one of the things that we could have done, one of our choices. The other choice would have been to, just like we do that November PD day, somehow have teachers go answer all those questions, do all the activities. And we thought teachers may be a tad bit stressed and have a tad bit of things going on their plate at this moment in time. So we chose just to keep the CSIP the same, rather than to bug you with tons of emails and phone calls and meetings and stuff like that. So just save that for another day when we're not up to worrying about a global pandemic.
Looks like Sarah's in agreement. We have Sarah's support. She's nodding.
Okay. And as always, I'm happy to meet on that if you would want to.
Well, appreciate the presentation there, Mr. Wolf, and the thorough explanation there of the CSIP. So, any questions from the committee here for Mr. Wolf on the CSIP before we move forward?
Do we just need a motion to accept the CSIP?
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
So this is Angela. I have a question. How do we do that when we haven't seen it?
I just sent it to you, and I know you haven't necessarily had the time. If you want to, if you would like to look it over first before approving, if you want to come to the board meeting, it's going to be like approved there as well. But we, like I said, technically we have to have it on the minutes. But if you want to review it in January, we can review it in January as well. Technically, we should be reviewing it constantly. It's just something that has to be a part of the minutes. I apologize, you did not have it sooner.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you do the agree, don't agree, but I don't think I should be putting my approval on something that I haven't reviewed yet. So I would personally prefer to review before I agree to saying it's accepted.
That's fine.
If it isn't any solace, this same exact CSIP minus progress monitoring notes was approved 1 year ago and last December. It's the same CSIP. It hasn't changed, minus like I said, the objectives with local data has changed. That's the only thing new on it. So if that helps. So I can assure you I did not go change anything on the plan. I'd rather get teacher input during that PD day. So it is the same exact plan that I don't know who made the motion and who approved it last December, but nothing's changed from it. I promise you. I really don't, I really have no reason to lie to you why it would be different. So it is the same.
I do like how it says that due to the pandemic, certain things are not happening. So I do appreciate that.
Well, there are some things, for example, live scoring, which is on there. That's not happening right now, but per Katie's recommendation, we're not taking that all the way out. We just make a statement that it's not happening right now, and we'll revisit it. Like I said, we didn't have to have progress monitoring notes for every single activity. I just followed Katie's recommendation. That's all I did with the plan.
I'll approve this also, or second Bushley, from what I can see. But yeah, just the progress monitoring notes and looks the same.
And we can add progress monitoring notes. If someone, Angie Bushley could say, hey, we should have progress monitoring notes for every single one of them. That's perfect. If that's what you would like to do, just let us know. That was just not a requirement. And like I said before, because we were not getting input from staff, I didn't want to add anything else or really change it other than those notes.
Are we ready now to move into the budget report? Since Ms. Bushley and Mrs. Getz have approved?
Yes.
Okay. One note I do want to mention, at our last meeting, we discussed the possibility of reallocating the funds from the field trip for field trips and for senior trip. We are able to do so. Okay, so that was nearly $3,000. I just wanted to make sure, I told you I would double check on that, and I wanted to make sure communicate to the committee that we are able to do that, and it comes to about $3,000.
One thing, that's Section 7 monies, correct, Scott?
Yes, Section 7 money.
Okay, so one thing that I talked to Scott about was Section 7 money. Section 7 monies are monies that the school board gives to each school, a lot of times at the request of the council or the principal. So once those funds are allocated, the school has those. The school can make a motion. You'd have to make a motion to spend those on something else. But let's just say, let's use field trips, or let's use senior trip. Let's say you don't go on a senior trip this year and you make a motion to pay for something else. That works. Let's say you get those monies next year. You make a motion to spend those on something else. Unlike Section 6 money, Section 7 money, the board can take those monies back from you. So I would advise you to make a motion and spend those if you're not going to spend it on a senior trip or field trips. But, and I realize we're in a global pandemic, but you would not want to continually do that, because then the board could just say, well, they never used that senior trip money ever, so we're just taking it back. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So do we have to make a motion to move that now to like the surplus fund in order to keep it for this year and then decide later? Or do we need to specify exactly where it's going whenever we decide that?
Yeah.
Yeah, once you decide what to spend it on, that's when I'd make a motion.
We need to come up with a plan.
Surplus it.
So that's just something for us to discuss, like how would we like to use those funds, and then we decide the plan, and then the money's reallocated at that time. So we just really need to, as a committee, talk about what are some needs or things we think that would be beneficial to purchase right now with those funds, and then make sure the money's reallocated in that. So we just have to make a request. And obviously we don't have. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Busher.
Oh, it's okay. Last month, we had some communication from the science department that they were interested in some online resources for virtual instruction. And I had asked about STEM scopes, whether anybody had used that or found that helpful. I just was curious if we'd gotten any feedback on that, or if the science department had come up with anything specific that they needed as far as online resources.
I have not heard anything specifically from the science department regarding that. I know they're always some of the expenses in the science department are significant. So I'm sure if we ask what are, we could decide we want to. I can ask them just the different chemicals and things like they purchase for some of the experimentations and the labs they run, things of that nature. I could certainly ask them if they wanted to use the funds for that, or if we want to give them some money for that, or we could, English department, whatever. It could be a lot of different things across the board, whatever we feel the needs are.
Yeah, I just asked about science because they reported last month and had said that they might need something.
We also talked about adding a line item where we put money in for textbooks or materials for each department for the year. This might be a way to maybe knock out two departments at once. Could we send a survey or something out to department heads?
Absolutely. We could just, so you want maybe a line item for purchasing books for departments?
Yeah, or online supplements.
That's something I could ask department heads.
That might also, I don't know if Rick is still here, but that grant, I don't know. We had slightly talked about money possibly from that grant going to textbooks. So I don't know if that's just something to think about with the money spending stuff.
Scott, one thing I did want to bring up, so I talked to Lincoln Site Base on these same exact topics last month, and one of the things that was not on your agenda, but this is under budget that I brought, and I want to bring up as a reminder, let me share this with you, is the Title I monies that the school gets. So here's a positive thing. We got a adjusted allocation. See if you guys can see this. So we got an increase from $505,000 to $554,000. Basically, what you guys need to know for Dayton High School is that was an increase of $23,879.80 for Dayton High School. So of these monies, so last year we spent it on CERT, Reading Plus, case testing, Certiport, which is Microsoft Office certifications. So far for this year, because of the, I'm going to take this off here for a minute, because of the SIG grant was running out. So we used every ounce of the SIG grant to pay for every license that we have. But as of now, none of these monies have been spent for Dayton High School. So actually these two $10,000 should say $20,000. Not 10,000. That's my misprint there. So this should say 20. This is 20. So I can work with Scott. I know Aaron mentioned textbooks. Like we can use monies for towards instructional resources and books. Those are the school's funds to spend.
And I know for math, we talked about like that Envision 2020, I think is what Lincoln's using, and working that curriculum so that as they come into middle school and high school, the students are already familiar with that. So I know the math department would be very excited to look at that.
I'm sure.
It would be a good segue because they have it K through 6 at the elementary school. So it'd be nice to, at minimum, have it 7th and 8th grade. So, but that's something to keep in mind. I will bring a copy. That's one of the things I want to make SiteBase aware of is that those monies, they're not Rick Wolf's to spend. They're all the schools. So Scott, keep that in mind too if something comes up. Like Aaron just made me think about it when Aaron mentioned textbooks. If there's something that comes up here, you're like, hey, we really need money for this. You have all that money in Title I to spend.
I'll make a note of this right now, Rick.
You're on mute, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. I just said I think I've given Scott a copy of that. I'm not sure, but I will bring a copy over. We can share that with the with SiteBase. I mean, it's just where our title money. It's where our federal funds go. It's anybody can see it and have it. Thanks, Ms. Bushley.
Ms. Bushley, Ms. Plate said that the middle school and high school is not using STEM scopes currently. but they would like more of an online lab resource. So we can have them look at something else maybe.
Sounds great.
And it looks like they just renewed the STEM scopes for Lincoln, not for the high school. So it's not like we're paying for it and not using it.
And maybe when Miss Sarah reports, she'll tell us about needs for the English department.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other question or comment on the budget reports? No. Okay. At this time, then we'll go ahead and we'll move on into our committee reports. This month's our English department and our business department will be sharing. I'm glad to see Miss Davenport has joined us. She's our English department head. Mr. Khan was invited as well, but we'll just go ahead and we can answer. He has submitted the report for the business department. We can discuss anything we'd like to there, but this time I'll go ahead and let Ms. Davenport share with us the report for the English department.
Okay, I hope you guys are okay with the formatting I used, because the form that got sent to me, it says something about students, and since we aren't allowed to have student names, I didn't want to confuse my department, so I just made my own. I hope that is okay. So for grade 7, our numbers of failure were pretty low, so only 5 students total in the whole 7th grade out of, I guess that would be 59, 60 students-ish. So that's really good. I know for me, for 7th grade, I'm contacting parents constantly through Google Voice, which is working really, really well. Also contacting Mr. Herbst and Ms. Dahlkamp to make contact with those students. And as a middle school, I think, I mean, obviously I haven't seen other departments' numbers in the middle school, but I think as a team, we're working really well together, getting on the same page with who needs help and what we need to do for each kid. So I think that's really helping us. For grade 8, the numbers were a little worse, but not terrible. For honors, it was only 4 students that were failing, but for regular English, it was 18, which those numbers concern me a little bit, but I've heard that this isn't unusual for other departments as well. So if you guys have questions, I can answer those. And then RTI number, it was about half of the students failing. So I know that I and Mr. Fitzgerald, obviously he's new to teaching it. We're both new to teaching RTI, so that could be part of it. But he mentioned that the strategies and interventions is he's contacting the parents, because we all agreed that most of this is because of NTI. Our numbers were much better before we went online. This is really a reflection of how it's been the last like 3 weeks when they haven't been with us. He says that he takes time out to catch up on late work with the students and works with them individually, and that virtual instruction has made it difficult. So grade 9 and 10, those were also about the same. So about half, a little less than half of the students are failing 9th grade, and half of the class of honors is failing for 10th grade. So again, those numbers were a little concerning to me. But the teacher says that they're calling home. Mr. Herbst has been contacted, lots of communication. One of the concerns is that there's lack of care. So they're not, they're getting the phone calls and then the response is, oh, well, and then they move on and nothing happens from it. So that was the big thing. But he also said that he tries to work with them individually, and some get the help and some don't. And that hybrid was helpful. So hopefully we'll get back to that. And then grade 11 and 12, obviously these numbers are going to be a little wonky because we've been between teachers. So for grade 11, it is about 23 of the 23 of the 53 that are failing junior English. Calls of missing meets. So again, lots of parent contact. And then Miss Hoffman's the one's been teaching it. So she's the intervention specialist and she's kind of been doing dual duty. And then grade 12, actually that's really good. There's only 24% of grade 12 failing, which I think considering everyone else's numbers and the fact that we're in a pandemic and like everything that's been going on, I think that's good news in the sense that it could be much, much worse. So she said that there's of 7 failing, 6 haven't turned in their big summative. So I would assume that means that if they get their summative in, they'll all be passing, which I think is wonderful news for the seniors. So
I did communicate with me today, just to let me know that I guess their projects, a lot of students turned those in.
Oh, good.
It's made a huge difference. So in her words, there are very few failures now. She didn't give the specific number there. So that's a positive. I want to share that with everybody because I
just want to, like, that was my concern too. I want to make sure everyone graduates, you know, like we don't want this to kind of interfere with something that big. The positives, personally, my students have been very positive, like attitude wise. I haven't had a lot of kids, and they might in their own space be kind of unhappy, but when we're together, there's so much happiness and positivity that is, I think, a really great thing. Behavior issues have been very low, and I think small class sizes have helped with that. And the fact that we're having more one-on-one attention with the students, they're getting to know us a little bit more, which is, I guess, a little ironic since we're not with them all of the time. But strangely, for me, it's helped. And then for 9 and 10, he says that they're going to start Julius Caesar and the Odyssey, and he's really excited with those texts and thinks that the kids will like them too. And then I think that's about it for the good stuff. I mean, there's lots of good things, but that's all that's on the paper. The concerns, a sense of learned helplessness, which I think is a little unfortunate with the situation we're in and the fact that we have teachers new to the district. So like I've only been here for a year and a half, and then the other English teachers, well, one's not been here yet at all, and then the other 2 are brand new, and one's fresh out of college. I think there's a little bit of a, I don't know, learning curve there for how to handle students. I don't think that it's unique to Dayton, and they might feel it's unique to Dayton kind of understanding. I'm not positive, but hopefully someday things will get a little bit back to normal and this learned helplessness will kind of diminish a little bit.
I think that's, and I'm going to, of course, I'm always going to defend Dayton, but you can read the news, it's here in the news, and that's certainly a statewide, national issue with the virtual schooling that we're seeing going on. So I know that's not exclusive to Dayton, but we certainly have that as an element in our school, and a challenge that we're faced with. And I know that our staff is working extremely hard to try to shore up those the needs of our students and get them achieving and growing in the way we hope and expect.
Yeah, and I know personally, I try to make it more work to avoid me than to just do the work. And so I don't know if that's why my numbers are a little lower because I'm obnoxious, but whatever, it's working, right? So then I wanted to share with you guys the thing we talked about in our department really quickly is we talked about some writing things that we need to work on as like a department. So we noticed spacing, punctuation, indentation, run-on sentences, verb tenses. These are all very small things that a lot of kids just have to get into practice of using, but those are the things we're going to focus on as a department. So we tried, instead of complaining about all the plethora of things that they could be doing wrong, we focus kind of on these 6 things that we're all going to work on. And we're hoping, and I know I've talked with Mr. Wolf about this, that in the future, if we could get some type of typing class, because we're seeing that a lot of these issues are because they don't know how to type on a document. So like punctuation, when we're handwriting, and we don't think about that because we've been typing for so long, but when we're handwriting, we don't think about the spacing after a period because we're writing it. But if we're typing it, we know as adults, there's a space after the period. The kids don't. And so little things like that is making it difficult to understand their writing. And that's becoming like a hurdle. Instead of us helping them with their ideas and their thoughts in the process, we're having to help them with technology skills. And it's really taking a toll on curriculum time. So we kind of talked about with the grant. And so I hopefully in the future we'll have something to go with. But I think that's about all I have.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did Mr. Little come up with a game plan? Like his 9th grade honors class, we've got 11 honor students failing, and the same goes for 10th grade. And I personally know that one of my kids is on that. And the fact that he doesn't have any comments, he emailed me the first semester, and I haven't heard anything since. And honestly, the way it went down in class, from what I heard from not only my child, but other people, was I'm going to tattle on you and tell your mom when I see her at a soccer game. So I just kind of want to know, I'm frustrated. As a parent, I'm very frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's no notes, that frustrates me even more.
Well, I can read exactly what he typed. I'll read it word for word. So it says, I'm emailing home and including Jesse Herbst on emails for several of the students who are failing or at risk. I've been in communication with several of the students and asked why they are failing, and it is generally an apathetic response. When I contact home and get a response back, I have a conversation with the parent or guardian about what we can possibly do to address the grade. I've made several extra credit or alternative assignments to help students when I am able to. I have also allowed any of them who have asked me to work with Ms. Stallkamp to do so and have updated grades accordingly. I believe it is not a reflection of the NTI we are currently using because when we were in hybrid mode, most of those grades were very similar. So he had a little bit of a different take with NTI. That is all I know, but I can relay or ask questions if I need to anyone that you guys want me to.
Yeah, I mean, he knows me from being on site-based and everything, and I think he feels comfortable enough. And I think that's kind of like how the threat came through. And I'm okay with threatening my children. I believe fear will earn teachers' respect. Sorry, I'm old school like that. I know you all totally disagree with me. That's how I am. I love detention, and that's a bad word at your school.
I would certainly encourage you to reach out directly to Mr. Little.
I have. We've emailed.
I think that's always the best, is to go to the teacher, go to the source, because they know better than anybody, and have that conversation so you can get some satisfactory answers, or at least know what or why things are going on.
Sure.
Sorry, I agree to an extent of what she's saying, in the sense of not, because I am not in the classroom, but I think what we had talked about with site-based is we want to know how are we improving. And even before all of this isn't against any teacher, this is even myself. I don't feel like I'm being held personally accountable based on like what I wrote about, if that makes sense. Like a plan of, okay, what are teachers actually doing to help these numbers besides the overall commenting of I'm calling home? And I could be wrong, Jen. That was kind of my thought too. I was like, how are we as a department gonna like actually sit down and say, how are we helping these specific kids and what are we doing about it?
I mean, and it's an honors class, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad Zoe's not the only one. But know that there's 10 other kids as well, and they're supposed to be self-led students in this specific class. It's just, I don't know if they're all just being stinkers and giving him a challenge, and I'm not going to deny that because I know my own kid. So, and then this is another odd question and this goes for every subject across the board. I know my kids personally have lots of late and turned in or missing assignments. When they actually turn in missing assignments, what's the time frame that the teachers have to update the grades and do all that stuff?
Well, certainly,
And that could be anybody
we
that
have a-
answered that.
we don't give a specific day or amount of days, whatever. I mean, I think it just comes down to the teacher, when they receive the work and being able to get it back to them in a timely manner. Depending upon the type of assignment, project, what have you. Some could be, that the hour or that day or certainly that week. If it goes beyond that, I think that was a little bit longer than I'd like.
Okay. And I totally get it. And I preach the, when you're assigning and when you have an assignment made, the teacher has that time then. Anything late is something, they're on to the next assignment. You're adding additional work for something that wasn't to be time managed at that time. So I
Right.
support when they get it done. I was just wondering if there was actually a time frame that the teachers had to get it done by.
Some of the
If
teachers
there's
like
something late, I'd reach out to the teacher too, because sometimes on Google Classroom, if maybe the student had turned it in but forgot to click that it's been submitted, in the NTI realm, it is possible that the teacher might not know that it has been turned in late. So it's always worth an email, I think, too.
That was one of the things, I'm glad that Aaron mentioned that. That was one of the things I was going to say as well. That was one of the, I guess the word problems that we were having or issues we were having when we were virtual to start the years. Students submitting something late, but they weren't maybe not notifying the teacher through an email, so the teacher can go ahead and check for it and look to make sure they have it, and then having that communication. So I do think it's very important that if a student's submitting something late or they're doing a makeup, what have you, that they send an email or some type of communication to that teacher about the specific, and I put on there the specific assignment, and then keep record of it. So for their, so that it's a lot to ask a teacher when they have 100 different students and people are sending in, multiple assignments late here and there, trying to keep track of it. I know it gets very confusing for staff, which is understandable. So I think it's very important that they email immediately upon submitting something that's late.
And you're okay if because just because they say they did it doesn't mean they did it. I'm not a naive parent. We all know this. As a faculty, are you okay when there's a late assignment? Like I always tell them, go ahead and tag me on your email. That way I know that my kid completed that missing task. That doesn't offend teachers, does it?
I don't think so at all, and I think that's a good thing so that you can see it as well. I think the more we can work collaboratively between the teachers, the student, and the parent, I would encourage that. So yeah, I think that creates a greater sense of urgency for all parties.
That's cool. I just don't want to overstep, and I'm a big fan of copying and.
Jen, when did you worry about overstepping?
Do what?
When did you ever start worrying about overstepping?
Good point.
I think that's good. I mean, put them together.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Is there any way, Scott, that you can send out some kind of message to all parents with that information about emailing the teacher? Because there's a lot of parents that are complaining that their kids are saying they turned in work, but they're checking Infinite Campus and it says it's missing and they don't know what's going on. That might be helpful information because there appears to be a fair amount of parents that are checking their kids' grades and seeing a bunch of missing assignments, and that might help them help you.
Would you think that'd be something that would be worthwhile to put in the newsletter for me to speak on it and also include in our newsletter, Angela? Would that be?
Yeah.
Okay. So
also, with that, maybe mention that on Google Classroom, students can click turn in blank assignments. So to the parent who's looking at the to-do list, they're like, my kid did everything. Well, no, they didn't. They turned it in blank. So it's not the parent's fault. They're just being ornery little goobers, but we have to make sure that parents understand how that system works too, that they can turn in blank assignments. And that might be part of what they're seeing in the problem.
That's very interesting.
Is there a way for a parent to see that though, to know that, to be able to validate it before?
If the parent goes into the assignment and actually looks at what was turned in and double clicks on it, well, if it's a slide deck, I had numerous students in an honors class turn in turn it in, so it looked like it was complete. But if you clicked on the slides, you could see that nothing had been done. So there is kind of that extra step. I don't know how you put that in a newsletter or ask parents to do that, because the kids are smart enough. They know how to make their to-do list or missing list go from 10 to 0 without really.
I got an email last night from a student letting me know that they had submitted something late, or they had submitted an assignment that, quote, had not been posted, what have you. Well, it was easy enough for me just to go in and check the class that he was referring to, and when I checked it, all the grades were in. So I'd asked the teacher, and the teacher responded that they had that I was seeing it correctly, that yeah, everything was submitted. So I really wasn't quite sure on that, but obviously there was some confusion there. But what I'll do, Angela, is I'm going to put a reminder here for myself to include that in the newsletter. I'm just going to mention there something about carbon copying the parent in the email for the student emailing a teacher to carbon copy, so that they can see that they've let the parent or let the teacher know that they submitted something late or what have you, or something that they need to turn in. Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, I think so. It's a common thing, and usually you see this, certain parents complain, and it's their kids are typical ones that just don't turn in assignments or do things like that. But in this scenario, there was a lot of people commenting, and some of them were parents who had kids who typically do turn in items. So it may be a learning curve, a training, but I think it might help by having them be able to help in some way anyway.
I think that's a good thing. And one of the things too, I email staff today is just reminding them that, I just letting them know that I would encourage them to accept late work all the way up to posting of the grades on for the first semester, second quarter on Wednesday, January 6th. Like we talked about all year, we have to be a lot more flexible than we've ever been, and just be ready to pivot and parent. And no, not that I expect our teachers to be sitting there grading, late submitted work on New Year's Eve, even though they'll probably be home. But I just, when they get back on the 4th, to have some days, or if some kids submit some work then, that certainly I would encourage them to accept that work graded, so that I think it's required during, due to the extenuating circumstance we find ourselves in with this pandemic.
Okay.
Okay. Any question or comment for Ms. Davenport? Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Very, very nicely done. Next there is just Mr. The business department. Mr. Khan was invited. He did not join us, which is okay. He's not required to. But you can see here the information, the report that was submitted with Mr. Roy's classes for MOS, business and financial literacy, and as well as introduction to business. And then Mr. Khan submitted the failure report for his digital literacy class. So you should have that in the agenda that I sent out, and let you guys take a look at that, or you probably hopefully you had an opportunity to look at it over the weekend. It's similar to what we talk about here, what we talked about with Ms. Davenport, what we discussed with all the departments in terms of the strategies that we're using to try to. They're similar. I mean, there's not reinventing the wheel. One of the things that we started doing here recently as a school is using the filter and creating a filter in Infinite Campus, where we're immediately that day sending a note home to parents, letting them know if their child did not participate in their English 3 class or whatever it is. Just let them know. It doesn't specifically tell them which class, but lets them know they were not marked as participating in one of their classes that day. And then of course they can call the school and check. And that was just a way of us being able to kind of respond more quickly and keep our parents more in the loop. We have received some positive feedback on that, and that's been encouraging. So in fact, during our meeting, I've already received 2 emails from parents asking me directly which class was their child marked as not attending. So I'm always happy to respond to those questions and get that information for them, because I love seeing that parent involvement. And when we have parent involvement, it always increases student achievement. So I love getting those emails from parents. And if I only have 2 today, if I get 12, if I get 10 tomorrow, I'm happy to respond, because we want that involvement. So I would prefer not have any students who didn't participate, but we know there's always going to be, we have some out there. So that's one of the things we've done. And I will say, Mr. Herbst has really had some success with knocking on doors. And of course, you find people are home right now. And so I've gone out myself, and I know some other people as well, and knocking on doors and being able to make that, face-to-face, person-to-person contact where we had this conversation. The frustration, I think, lies in, it's no different when I knock on the door, Mr. Herbst knocks on the door, we have those discussions, and here's what's going on, here's what we're seeing, what have you, and then we don't get any traction, so to speak. I think that's frustrating from our end. And I know for our teachers who are going out of their ways to make those phone calls, emails, use Remind, etc., in terms of communicating to a parent, here's what their child's doing. They're doing that with the hopes that now we're going to see get them more involved, get the student more motivated, and have increased achievement. And when we don't get those, sometimes we get those results, but we don't get them at the scale we'd like to, and I think that's where people get frustrated. So just thought I'd mention that. Any questions at all on Mr. Roy or Mr. Khan?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Well, that means we're ready then. Are we ready now to move into the policy review? All right. So last month we had our first reading of policy 4.01. That was the school day and week schedule. So I'll give everybody a few minutes here to, if they need it, to take a look at policy 4.01 and let us know if you are ready to approve that, or if you would like any changes to be made. That was a pretty straightforward one, as well as the next policy we're going to review tonight as well.
I'll make a motion to approve policy 401.
I'll second for policy 4.01.
All right, thank you. All right, this time we'll go ahead and move to our first reading then on policy 5.01 on school space use. this was a pretty simple, straightforward. It shouldn't take you any time much time to review it, and then let me know any language that you think may or may not need to be changed. I'm happy to do that before our meeting in January. Well, that sounds weird to say January. Well, I have already gone in, and you'll see there in the classroom space assignments, I just changed the on numbers 1, 2, and 3 to May, June, and July. I think that fits our time frame more. But please read through and let me know your thoughts if you think that's appropriate or not. Can't hear you, Mrs. Guest.
Sorry, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading.
I'll second it.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. We'll go ahead now. There's no old business to discuss. From a new business standpoint, ahead down here, just Mr. Wolf has already discussed the CSIP. Obviously, we are still in phase 3, which is the timeline is November the 1st through January 1st. So he's already gone into great detail about discussing that. So really nothing to go over there. You can see at the bottom here, at the very end, it's just the board report that was shared with you. And like I said, this is something that we started doing here recently, and just kind of a sharing of information, just trying to be as transparent as possible, and letting you know the things that are going on here at Dayton High School. And you can see in there that we've mentioned the policy, the grant that was approved, and talks about athletics and gives the dates when teachers are posting the grades for the first quarter, second semester, and report cards. Then some exciting news there with Jordan Marksberry signing at Thomas More to play football in the fall. That's a full scholarship, and you think about the cost of attending Thomas More. I know Mr. Wolf attended Thomas More, and he's a proud alum of the Saints there, and excited to see that, and very happy for Jordan. I mean, I told him, I said, you're one of the wealthiest kids I know. I mean, talk about a full scholarship to Thomas More. I said, what, you're talking about probably $200,000. So congratulations to him. Same thing for Angel Patterson. For her to, she's gonna be playing soccer next year at Berea College. She'll get her full school paid for, and to come out of college debt-free is amazing. I know as a parent of 3 kids, I think about the cost of sending the 3 of them to college, and I want to crawl under my desk and hide. That's an astronomical amount of money. So wonderful news for both of them. And then I was very excited for Eric Jimenez, who was named the Player of the Year in football for our district, which is awesome when you take consideration you've got Ludlow, Bellevue, and Newport Catholic, and he was named the Player of the Year. And was also named second team All Northern Kentucky. So that's for every school from Covcath to Connor to Dayton and every school in between. So quite an honor for Eric. And one of the most exciting parts about that, he's only a junior, so he gets to run it back next year. So I know Mr. Herbst is pumped about that. And then next week we'll be meeting, or actually I should say this week, we're meeting this Thursday for our college and career readiness to discuss where we are. We really want to be up to date, and we're tracking that, see where our students are. And then, of course, at the beginning of January, we'll be meeting again as an administrative team and looking at where we are with our graduate tracker. So we're really doing a lot of things here at the school, and you can see they're included in there, just the exam schedules and what the schedule would look like when we return from school. If we continue to have right now, as of today, the governor, we look like we'll be back in school on January 4th. I haven't heard anything else today, but that is obviously that could change. It's subject to change, but we'll keep our fingers crossed that hopefully we get these Green Devils back in the building as soon as possible. And very exciting news that the vaccine landed in Kentucky today and starting to hit nationwide here. And so that's extremely exciting. And then of course the last page there, just our students of the month. And I like to shout them out for 7th grade Brooklyn Unsel, 8th grade Dawson Israel, 9th grade Dominic Johnson, 10th grade Carson Reynolds, 11th grade Joseph Klossman, 12th grade Simon Ashcraft, and then our artist of the month was Matthew Tumler, and then our athlete of the month is Angel Patterson, who I mentioned earlier is going to be playing soccer at Thomas More next fall. So congratulations to each of those Green Devils.
Hey Scott, the literacy plan that was talked about, we have to approve that here. I have to show that to everybody. Did everybody sign off on that?
Yes. Everybody came in and signed that, and I want to thank everybody for doing that and getting that taken care of. So that has been signed off on, and
we have to send these minutes as well. So I'm just going to briefly, as quick as really, this could take me all night, but I will not allow it to take me all night. It literally, this has been a wonderful process, but it's something that I've been doing from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the past week and a half. But I have got to share this because we have to make a motion to approve it because these minutes have to be sent with the application. So as brief as I can, and Sarah knows more about this. We have, as part of this grant, we are going to hopefully get $665,726 for our district next year. Over $800,000 the second year. Or I'm sorry, no, that's total. I apologize. So $665,000. Looking at the budget now, if we get this, Dayton High School will get $98,700 next year, and it's to build a comprehensive literacy program from birth, which I know that sounds crazy, but we don't even get them in our district until age 3. But we're not accountable, but we're required from birth to they graduate to build this plan. And so we had to build this team, which we had a meeting last Wednesday. And on the high school team is Sarah, Brad Campbell, and Mr. Wright. And they will have to meet monthly with myself, Ms. Ponting, Mr. Brewer. Then there's a K-5 literacy team, and then there is a birth to age 5 literacy team. On our plan, briefly, I will share this with you. I'm in the midst of working on our budget here. So we had to write goals around aligned curriculum, multiple assessments. I don't want to go through this whole entire thing. The state gave us this template that we had to write a plan of action for 3 years of what we will do. We will be partnering with a company called the Collaborative for Teaching and Learning. And what I really like about them is grades 6 through 12, really grades 4 through 12. They work with all teachers, math teachers, social studies teachers, science teachers, not just ELA teachers, to implement literacy-based strategies into our instruction. And so the goal being that, once again, birth to grade 12, we're all speaking the same language when it comes revolved around literacy. And so I'm really excited about it. It has been a lot of work and a lot of time, but I'm excited about it because I really think that we're lacking in this area. Especially, if you look at our writing scores and our reading scores, we struggle not just at Dayton High School, throughout our district. So I can share that plan with you once we send it in. Sarah, I believe, has a copy. She's more happy to send it. We're just, we're not trying to put the cart in front of the horse and send it to everybody yet until we really know that we're doing it. Hence why we haven't sent it to everybody. So I can send you the 6 through 12 literacy plan after we submit it on Wednesday. We just have to make a motion more so to, yes, site-based, we are on board with getting $665,000 into our district and over, like I said, $98,000 for the high school alone next year. So really that's what we have to make the motion for, Scott. It's not that we're necessarily approving the literacy plan. It's just that, yes, we are on board with applying for this comprehensive literacy grant and keep our fingers crossed that we get it. Does that make sense? So it's not like we're not approving. It's not like the Caesar. We're not approving a plan. We're just approving that, yes, we're on board with getting this grant.
I'm on board with getting this grant.
Would be nice. So I think Chris is going back and redoing the minutes. So Aaron's on board. We just need a second with that so we can include that. Ms. Bushley?
I'll second.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Sorry to take up a few extra minutes of your time. Like I said, we could talk. The brief, Sarah was in the meeting for an hour and then met with Chris and Brad another time. We could talk about this for days on end. It's a lot, but I think it'll be good for our district. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rick.
All right.
Before we adjourn, we do need to set the dates for our SBDM meetings beginning in January. So I've already looked ahead at some dates here. If you guys have a calendar in front of you where you can check as well, but it lines up pretty easily. Fourth Monday of every month. So beginning, our first meeting would be January 25th. Then we would meet on February 22nd. And just if this is a problem for anybody, we can always go back and we would adjust, obviously, if there's something going on. Then our third meeting would be March the 22nd. Our April meeting would be the 26th of April. Our May meeting would take place on the 24th. And then our June meeting would be the 28th. Those are the fourth Monday of every month. Before we approve that or we agree on that, I'm going to ask one more time if anybody would like to move our SBDM meetings to the same day as our board, which is on Wednesdays, or if you want to continue to have meetings on Monday. Does anybody have any? I know, Jen, I don't think that's working for you.
I'll just stay quiet. Wednesdays don't work for me.
No, that's okay. I'm perfectly fine doing on Monday. So that works. That seems that is more convenient for everybody, and that's fine. Okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll have those dates. I'll send out calendar invites to everybody, so we have that, and then we'll get those those dates uploaded onto the school website that holds our SBDM calendar, and we'll get that taken care of hopefully this week. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Anything else before we adjourn? Sounds like dinner time approaching here. Somebody's got the ice in the cup there.
It's me.
I figured. Okay. At this time, we're ready to adjourn?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion. Yeah,
Motion to adjourn.
there we go. I'll second.
All right. Thank you, guys. Hope everybody, if I don't see you, hope everybody has a blessed holiday. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll be seeing you shortly. All right?
Merry Christmas,
Bye.
everyone.